Hello everyone, it's Jippo the Yuppis here with another Half-Life video. It's been more than 11 years since the release of Half-Life 2 and 8.5 years since the release of Half-Life 2 Episode 2. Rumors in the gaming community and minor leaks from Valve have been keeping the fire lit on the hype for a new Half-Life game. Valve has officially refused to comment in any way whether there is indeed a new Half-Life title in the making. The aforementioned leaks, however, confirm that some work has been put into making a new Half-Life game. Of course, it doesn't mean it's going to be released. Personally though, I find it unlikely that Valve wouldn't continue such a big and profitable franchise at some point. So here are 5 challenges and problems that Valve will be facing with the continuation of the Half-Life series. First though, just remember that these are my personal thoughts. I'm not a professional critic or anything, just a simple long-time fan of the series. Some of these issues might be quite easy to resolve, and some probably have already been resolved by Valve. Number 5. The title of the game. This is definitely one thing that can be resolved pretty easily. However, it'll be interesting to see what choice Valve will end up in this matter. The most common name for the next Half-Life title that is being spread on the internet at least is simply Half-Life 3. This would make sense in that the next game will probably be a large one that is not tied to the previous games too tightly. The next option could be HalfLife Something. This is like, for example, when the first Source Engine games were released, they were called Counter-Strike Source or Day of Defeat Source. So maybe the next game in Half-Life series could be something like Half-Life VR or something similar, since Valve has recently been heavily invested in the VR technology. It could also be that the story takes a completely new turn that is then reflected in the title of the game, like Half-Life Reckoning or Half-Life Something Something, if you catch my point. The last option, though unlikely, would be Half-Life 2 Something. Gabe Newell has stated though that Valve has dropped the episodic development cycle of games, so it seems unlikely that we would ever see Half-Life 2 Episode 3 as we were originally told. However, the Half-Life 2 series will require acknowledgement in the next title, and from that we actually get nicely to the next challenge. Number 4. Continuity. Half-Life games have often ended in quite loose cliffhangers. That is, the ending has given Valve free hands to continue on the series in any way they want. For example, Half-Life 1 ended with G-Man putting Gordon to stasis, which allowed Valve to put Gordon in a completely new setting for Half-Life 2. However, the last Half-Life release, Half-Life 2 Episode 2, ended in a tight cliffhanger. During Episode 2, it is quite clearly told to the player what would come next in the story, and when the game actually ends, the camera simply fades away. Gordon is not hindered or put to stasis or anything really, he just stands there next to the other characters. It was made quite clear that the next Half-Life game would continue directly from this point. However, that sequel was originally supposed to come about 8 years ago, yet the whole Half-Life series, or at least the Gordon storyline, is still hanging on from this cliff. Number 3. Time gap. As I've already mentioned, an absurd amount of time has passed since the last Half-Life game came out. Personally, I was a 16-year-old high school student when Half-Life 2 Episode 2 came out in 2007, and now I'm 25. A person who was 9 years old in 2007 when Episode 2 came out is now turning 18 in 2016. That is an age that is in the prime audience category for games like Half-Life. It will be interesting to see how the Half-Life series will be marketed in the future for audiences who have never played its previous titles when they were fresh. At least today's gamers can play something like Black Mesa that can give them the experience of Half-Life 1 in a bit more modern package. This time gap that is almost a decade long now will also present some practical problems. For example, can Valve even get the same voice actors to return to the series after a decade of waiting? Gordon's voice actor most importantly. Number 2. The hook. Half-Life games have often been praised as some of the best computer games ever made, at least the main titles. Half-Life 1 took the best aspects of the early 90s FPS games like Quake and added an unforgettable setting, story and scripted events. Half-Life 1 was a story-driven FPS game that influenced all the other ones after it and against which they all are compared to. Half-Life 2 took the story even deeper with a completely new totalitarian and apocalyptic setting in City 17. Players were also stunned with the then revolutionary graphics and physics capabilities of the Source engine. The gravity gun became an iconic weapon of the series, only rivaled by the legendary crowbar. If the next Half-Life game is ever going to be released, it will be exciting to see what Valve has created in order to make us wow again. There has been some speculation about using virtual reality devices in the game. However, it would seem unlikely that Valve would limit a major title like Half-Life to such a small consumer base, which it will remain for some time until the price of virtual reality drops. The Source 2 engine has already been developed together with a new in-house physics engine called Rubicon. For me though, it seems unlikely that Valve would use the same trick a second time and rely on just continuing the story and better graphics in the next Half-Life title. Number 1. Gameplay. Half-Life 1 and 2, though excellent games, are very tightly controlled and linear. They actually shouldn't have that much replay value when you think about it. The gameplay experience is the same every time. It's just that they are so well made, it's still fun replaying them and remembering them years after. However, computer games have evolved greatly since the early 2000s when Half-Life 2 was developed. Players now expect much from the AAA games, one of which the next Half-Life game would likely be. Multiple choices in the story, ability to change your character's abilities to your liking, and perhaps most importantly, openness and exploration are things that modern gamers are used to. The closed corridors of Black Mesa or the streets of City 17 that are magically always blocked by rubble might be a hard sell for a modern gamer. Series such as The Witcher and Mass Effect have managed to combine gripping stories with open worlds that provide plenty of interesting content, choices and replay value. How will Valve answer to this? Will they do something like what BioShock Infinite did to its series by giving previously linear series more freedom? There have been some leaks that hint that the next Half-Life game might actually have a quest system, which would be something completely new. It will be interesting to see how it is implemented with a silent protagonist like Gordon. Whatever the case is, the next Half-Life title must be very different from the previous ones in order to be excellent like them. Yet at the same time it has to feel like a logical continuation for the series and maybe finally give some answers to the fans. Thank you for listening to my thoughts. I hope you found them interesting. Give this video a thumbs up or down and leave a comment if you have any suggestions or things that could be improved in my future videos. See you in the next one!